Good morning, everyone. This is Greg Aden coming live from you in Denver, Colorado. And today I have a very special guest, a man that has influenced me not only as a coach, but as a parent and a spouse. And he's written a great book that today I still use it. I take the 12 elements of it and I send it to the team and I say, which of these resonate with you?
Mm.
And what I'm referring to is John Eades, who's with us today. But your book, Building the Best, 8 Proven Principles to Elevate Others to Success. I've read it. I know why you read it, but I want to start there with you, John. And not everybody writes a book, period. Not everybody writes a book that's going to influence others, in my humble opinion, as this one did. But tell us the story as to what made you want to write a book and
Mm.
write this book.
Well, I think anybody that does anything creative, like writing a book, does it to solve their own problem,
Mm.
does it to scratch their own itch, as you will. And the reason why I wrote Building the Best was because I had failed as a leader 12 years ago, and I didn't have a roadmap or a game plan or a book to help me lead more effectively. And I couldn't find anything that resonated with the times of what I was seeing in some of the best leaders. And so we studied leaders for 7 years, and then we wrote a book about it called Building the Best. And we tried to decipher those into some proven principles and some models that people could actually use and apply when they lead their teams. So it wasn't all theory, but it was
Yeah.
a combination of stories to inspire, models to teach, and then principles to remember. And that was what Building the Best was and is. And I continue to write in that style, working on a new book now. And yeah, I think that's why I did it, to scratch my
Yeah.
own itch and solve my own problem.
So not self-serving, but understanding that, hey, if it could help you, pretty good man, good living, great family, it might just help hundreds and thousands of other people. And so humbly spoke, I believe is what I'm also looking for. And you and I have met in person. You were part of my first leadership development day here in Denver. And you also have a sense of humor that most people may not see right off the bat, and how you write. But I believe you're a humble person. And how would your wife and how would your kids describe you?
Well, they would certainly not say I'm funny. They say I'm only funny when I try not to be. So
Mm,
that's the way they've described me. I think about this often, Greg, because you only get to be a you get to be a parent for so long until they leave your house. And now I have a 13 and a 10-year-old, and I'm really intentional about teaching when
yeah,
I'm with them. I'm really intentional about getting them involved in the process of personal development early so they can carry that with them forward. If I had to summarize it all in one word, I would say the way they describe me is encouraging.
yeah.
I I just think life is hard. And
Mhm.
it doesn't matter where you're from, what you've done, who your parents are, where you work, you are going to be met with difficult times.
Yeah,
And in those difficult times, if you don't have someone to encourage you to keep going, it's really easy to quit.
yeah. I
And
love it. I have a 13-year-old, and a lot of people listening, and you probably remember a couple years ago, I lost one of my sons. He decided he didn't want to be here anymore and took his life. And I look at those days with Jackson and Brooks as some of my favorite memories
mm,
of the three of us. When before I got remarried, we called ourselves the Aden boys. And to use your word, I got them involved in everything, because maybe not knowing any better, but I thought, if they don't know how are they going to know how? So let them do it. Let them try. Let them fail, but encourage them and get them involved. And I would tell you, to this day, if you were to interview Brooks, also 13, soon to be 14, he would tell you that he enjoys our time together because we play.
mm.
But what he doesn't know is I'm teaching him why we're playing. You can do this, can't you? Well, you won't know until you try. Let's do it. And then not how I do it, but how he's going to see me do it, but how he's then going to make it his own. And I believe when we help young people be successful, then they're going to be better prepared for the world you just described.
Yeah, and I think at the center of that, I appreciate you sharing that, Greg. At the center of that is their confidence, believing that they're good enough, and that confidence has to come from within. It doesn't mean it
Mhm.
can't be influenced or borrowed from somebody else, but at the end of the day, the confidence has to come from within, and it has to be built through consistent daily repetition.
Yeah.
And so I take that responsibility seriously, and this is how it works in action for me. A few years ago, I was introduced to a radio show. This guy in New Jersey has this thing called the Success Hotline, and he's old school. He's probably in his 70s, and every single day he records this inspirational message. So for
Mm.
years, as I drove my kids to school, which I love to do when I'm in town, I
Yeah.
would call into the Success Hotline and we would listen to it. And then it was this great thing that we would do together. And then I finally figured out, I'm like, I need them to participate in this.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning of this year, I started this daily newsletter called the Optimistic Outlook. And with that, I would just write a simple quote with a description above it. And I did it for one big reason, certainly to encourage people to be optimistic in their life.
Right.
But most importantly, so when we're in the car driving to school, whoever's sitting in the front seat has to read that day's optimistic outlook
Love it.
out loud, Greg. So they're
Yeah.
they're building the skill. So
Yep.
when they speak publicly, when they speak up in class, I've already made an error. I've already had to start over and rereading the optimistic outlook.
Mhm.
And then they just keep doing that every single day. And I know at some point, Greg, they're going to say, Dad, will you just be normal? And I'm going to
Mm.
say, nope, this is just what I only get one chance at this, and this is how we're doing it. And then once you get your own car, you do it your own way. But that's the way I think about is how
Yeah.
do I get them to apply it, not just be a passive participant in it? Because it doesn't really matter that I know it. It matters that they know it.
Yeah, and John, I would say that being normal isn't gonna cut it.
It's a great point.
Walking around with your phone in your hand, thinking you're parenting, it's not going to cut it. And and what I also always say on the show, I will go to my grave saying there is a significant connection between leadership and parenting.
Mm.
And the most valuable clients are the people you're raising, not the ones that you're coaching. And as leadership coaches, we get to, and I mean that sincerely, we get to coach other human beings where they are now and help them get to where they say they want to go. Not what we tell them, but where they say, where do you want to go and why? Let's work on that. Well, where's the why coming from? I believe I want to get there, not I think I want to get there. No, I want to hear you say, what do you want to do? Brooks, same thing. And why is this behavior with me consistent? Because I missed it when I was little. I didn't have a dad that was involved or present.
Mhm.
I just kind of learned it. But then again, I probably wasted a lot of time, money, and energy not having a coach as a dad too. And I don't mean a super coach, but just someone that was let me participate and let me get you involved. I learned a lot from my dad, who's now not with us anymore. But mainly it was how to throw a softball, how to catch a football, and how to hit a golf ball straight.
And those are important too. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. All those
Speaking
things are
to a
important
golfer.
because, but they could build confidence as well.
I
We
know.
tend to only think about certain things or having fun, and making memories is important. But I love this idea that you got to be famous at home first.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so many people want to be famous at work, whatever that means. So many people want to, deliver great results, and you should at work. But boy, being famous at home is something that I'm striving for. It's not easy. It takes a lot of intentionality. I don't pretend to be perfect. I'm not, and just like you aren't. But I like that. Just I ask myself, like, can I be famous at home first? And
Yeah.
let's start there.
Yeah. Well, your biggest fans are your biggest critics, and when Tammy points out, that's my wife, when she points out something that I could possibly work on, I hear that and I say, this is coming from a person who loves me, respects me, and wants me to be the best I can be. Why wouldn't I listen?
Mm.
But also you said intentionality, one of my favorite words, and I've got a cohort called Intentional Communication Builds Strong Relationships. What is it you want to say? What is it that you want to know? Well, then get some intention and go and figure it out. And then your relationships will be, more trusting, more honest, more real. I don't know what else you would want in a relationship. I want to ask you metrics, KPIs. Where are you around measuring everything in your practice, helping other people do it in their organizations, and what stock do you put in metrics and KPIs?
I put a lot of stock into it. Uh, I think at the end of the day, the scoreboard doesn't lie. Sometimes the wrong team wins, but there's a scoreboard for it. Now, having said that, it is a byproduct of the work that you put in to start. And
Okay.
I
Yeah.
that's where our focus is what are the inputs that we should measure to get the outputs that we want. We can't control the output anyways.
No.
So what are the inputs that we do want to measure? What are the things that are really important? So it's like that old adage, can we focus on the process over the result? Can we focus on the progress over perfection? Yes, to ignore the results would be malpractice in today's world. For
Sure.
leaders that don't care about results, to me, it's very short sighted because there is a measurement. There is a
Yeah.
measurement. And when we achieve good things, they compound. So the more we achieve, the better results are, the more energy we get, and we can compound it further and further. So I think KPIs and measurements are critical. What I care about more is focusing on the leading indicators versus the lagging indicators. The lagging indicators are just our scoreboard. What goes into, can we plant good seeds
Yep.
to then get the flowers to bloom like we want? We can't control it anyways. So I like to really to dig into what we believe the activities or the intention that are going to give us the best result. But certainly measuring it is a good way to say, hey, do we need to change? Do we need to pivot? Do we need to adjust? So to
Yeah.
not be metric or KPI focused, I think is a mistake in today's world.
Beautiful. So let me ask you this. Not so much the nuts and bolts, but the bigger things you recommend leaders measure. What are two or three or four of those that you just right off the top of your head or in your heart, just thinking out loud when you're coaching someone and they're saying, well, here's what I measure. What do you think, John? Or
Well, I like this. It's something called the free three.
free three or the
The
3-3?
free three. Like it's free.
Okay. Okay, good.
And every single day, you and I get to measure how we do in these three ways.
Okay.
And the first way is how you think.
Okay.
Do I believe in my brain the best I could today? That's 1 point.
Okay.
That's for free. No
Yeah.
one can choose that for you. The
Beautiful.
second is what you do each day. So it's free. Do I prioritize my top 3 non-negotiables? Am I doing the right things every single day that are going to help you become successful as it relates to your free 3? And again, these are these things right here. There's nothing that says like you're thinking, you're doing, and then ultimately your behavior is the last 3. So can you do those 3 things every single day? And those are free. So if you want to measure something, you just give yourself 1 point, 1 point, and 1 point. And the more 3s that you stack, the better your results are going to be.
Wow. Beautiful. I
Yeah,
mean,
your free 3.
yeah, and it didn't cost me a dime.
That's great.
Hey, do
Well,
you have a minute? I want to read you something.
yeah, I would love that.
Okay. Business markets can be unrecognizable. The influx of AI, different generations leaving and entering the workforce, trade and tariff wars, political power swings, and products that used to work are becoming obsolete. But the one constant, regardless of the industry or organization, the quality of leadership is the one factor that is recognizable. Said differently, Organizations can't manage their way around this kind of change.
Hmm.
They must be led through it. What great man wrote that?
Well, John Eades wrote that.
Yeah,
And
you wrote an article called "The Silent Rebirth of Leadership in World-Class Organizations," and I want to take this kind of part of a time. First of all, silent rebirth. Where did that come from? Again, I'm a big fan of what you do and what leadership means to world-class organizations, but you chose this heading, this title.
I did.
Walk me through this.
Well, the inspiration came from a college basketball coach. And St. John's made a really interesting decision a year and a half ago to hire a Rick Pitino.
Yeah.
And Rick Pitino's had an up and down career with some gray areas throughout and some of his decision making, some of his character.
Yep.
But he's been wildly successful everywhere he's been. And so I look for inspiration from leaders from all different places. And I think I chose those terms for the rebirth or the silent rebirth because I was thinking about him as a leader. He was kind of thrown to the wolves. He was late in his career. He went to Iona. No one wanted to hire him. He went to Greece. He was no one thought much of him, and here he is. He's completely transformed the St. John's basketball team again. He's pivoted his approach. He's adapted to the current environment. He is hard on these kids, but he loves them at the same time. And that's where that inspiration came from of the silent rebirth, that it's oftentimes the things that are really quiet or that are thrown aside that come back. And when they come back strongly. And leadership is one of these things that everybody knows it's important, but it's starting to emerge as even more important than it's ever been today, because what we see is it doesn't matter if it's early in an organization, late in an organization. The common factor is world-class leaders at the center of pivoting through change, of creating new things. It's at the center of everything.
Yeah.
And it's having this silent rebirth right now because everybody knows it's important, which is why it's kind of been forgotten. And the organizations that see it as more important now than ever before, Greg, are the ones that are prioritizing it again.
Amen. Yeah. And I love what you write. I follow you, and yeah, obviously you're one of the top voices in LinkedIn, and not many people know what that means, but you have to be a significant influencer to be a top voice with LinkedIn. And so I congratulate you on that. You have a great following, 170,000 followers on LinkedIn. And but
I actually think this is important. I know you're not asking me this question, but I've been thinking about this because that's great. And I don't take for granted the opportunity to send a newsletter and reach X amount of people each week. A lot of work's gone into that. It didn't just happen by accident, but platforms change, situations change. And I'm only saying that to your audience because someone with 170,000 followers with an algorithm change or a platform change, someone with a lot less can reach more today. And that didn't always used to be the case. Yeah. So I'm just encouraging, talk about our word at the beginning, encouraging people. If you've got things that can help people, share it. Yeah. Like your voice matters, and it might not get to the microphone I have, or it might be bigger than my microphone, and that's okay. The way things have changed and adjusted and pivoted, I'm very appreciative of that honor on LinkedIn and all the things that we've done there. But you have to keep adapting and changing and being willing to share. And
yeah, and I believe too, our world, John, has, oh my God, blank followers. And then I look at, I don't know, let's just pick Taylor Swift, for instance.
Yeah.
But what's the message? And what little girls' hearts are you changing? Or are you just saying, be me because I'm fill in the blanks? And I don't know that I'm a big fan of the adjectives. And we can pick probably 20 other people who have millions of followers and they're making a shitload of money. Mm-hmm. But making money isn't the thing leaders focus on relative to relationships. Yes, making money, being profitable, et cetera, is always going to be important, or you'll lose your job.
Mhm.
But what message are you sending? So the metrics are like communication, trust, empathy, curiosity, um, honesty. I mean, all those need to be measured. And you can measure those in relationships if you're curious, if you really care about the other person, empathy. And I believe those two attributes of a leader are in fact world class. If you're world class in understanding where the other person's coming from, John Eades, tell me that you won't be a better leader because you now understand, this is where Joel's coming from. This is where Susie's coming from. And I didn't know it because, well, guess what? It's hard to be humble when you're a prick. It's hard to have empathy when you're an asshole. And I know because I've been there.
Mhm.
When I was making a shitload of money with IHG selling franchises, it was get out of my way. I've got deals to do. So long
Yeah,
story
there's that
short,
there's that there's that visual representation of that speedboat, and you leave a wake of dead
yeah,
bodies behind you. And uh I think there's a powerful visual image there for any leader, is, yeah, I want you to achieve. I want you to be successful. I want you to do things. But if you got to do it by running over people, it you're just going to have to keep finding new people to run over because people aren't going to stick around. And if
yeah.
they do, it's only because they feel like they have to. And I like the way you said that. I think it's a really powerful way.
I would say that the my audience are people who believe in servant leadership to a certain degree. And the people that don't like this kind of podcast are the ones running over people because they're being paid to do so. And I won't mention any names recently in the news that have a significant influence on somebody in Washington, D.C. as we speak. It's just there are people that are they don't care. It's all about the
There are,
almighty
and
dollar.
it's so look, this is gonna be great. I I watched President Trump's speech last night, and I was really mesmerized by it. Regardless of what side of the political aisle that you sit on, or I sit on, or anybody else sits on, you could say 4 years ago Republicans weren't clapping. 4 year this year Democrats aren't clapping. There's
Right.
a there's a consistent theme there. And then I was considering what the current administration is really trying to do, and that is to enact a ridiculous amount of change in a short amount of time with a lot of people that don't want that change to happen. And I
Mhm.
think this is a real conflict for any leader, not just for Trump or Biden or Clinton or Obama. It doesn't matter. That yes, we have to find some way to unleash it. And then there's always going to be a time where it doesn't matter what you do. The other people it's never going to be good enough for them.
Yeah.
And again, regardless of how you feel about Trump, one way or the other is not the point. It was just, in his speech, he says, it doesn't even matter what I say or what I do. You're not going to clap. And it doesn't matter how good the results are. You're not going to like them. And I think it's sad that that's a place where our world is, because a year ago, it was the opposite the other way.
Yeah. I,
And it's just a tough spot. Um,
I always say every 4 years, 47 plus or minus percent are not going to be happy.
yeah.
52, 53% are going to be happy. I will say where I sit in all of this is I believe there's more than that people, right? That amount of people that are not happy, or at least really taken aback. And this is not a political show, and I'll just end by saying, be careful what you ask for, and really understand that this area, politics, is void of really great leadership 4 years ago, 20 years ago. But then sometimes, again, depending on who you love and don't hate, it's we've had some really good leaders.
Hmm.
But I can't influence politics. I disdain politics. I just think this politics in the organization is what sucks the life out of it because it's all what I want, what the shareholders want. And when it gets political, relationships don't mean a thing. And I'm all about communication intentionally to make the best relationships you can. So I stay out of the world of politics, not because I don't care, because
Yeah, but and I think that's smart. And to bring it back to not politics like in Washington D.C. or Donald Trump or Joe Biden, the reality is in big organizations that are hierarchical driven,
Mhm.
politics is a factor for any leader to have to navigate. And
Yep.
to act like politics doesn't matter in an organization is a miss.
Right.
So just because I don't like it or you might not like it doesn't mean we don't need to understand it. Doesn't mean leaders don't need to know how to influence it. Doesn't mean leaders don't need to know how to figure out how to get things done that they need or want to accomplish without forcing their way through it. So it is a big topic, and it's sad that that's kind of the place we are in organizations, but to ignore it is also a mistake, especially if you're working in a big organization.
Amen. Amen. I learned a neat phrase from one of my first real influential leaders, Jim Ainsworth, who's written a ton of books. He was a CPA and a CFC, et cetera, or CFP. We were training accountants to become financial planners, and he would look them in the eye and say, "You're like an ostrich with your head in the sand." And it's just a beautiful visual. Now, you could have said somewhere they
You're
had
right,
their head,
somewhere
but
else. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And it sticks with me today. You may not want to do anything about it, but your words, not mine. You need to be aware. And you can't be aware if you don't have your head up like you are right now. Do you drive with your head in your lap? No. You might be if you're dumb and you're looking at your phone and you're running into someone and stopped in front of you. And millions of people do it every day, John. But anyway, John Eades, to you, your family, your followers, your clients, God bless you.
Thank you, man. It
You're
means a lot
just
to me. I appreciate the work that you do and all the impact that you're making as well. And ever since I came to Denver for that first event, I saw your real heart, and I saw that you really care and that you were transforming both yourself as you were helping transform others. So uh, keep it up. Don't give
will
up.
do.
Keep
No,
making an
love it.
impact.
I will. Speaking of impacts, if you didn't see it earlier in the podcast, and he mentioned he's got another one coming, but for now, read this one, Building the
Building the
Best.
best. Yeah, thank you. It means a lot to me. And you know, I'm I'm Lent just started and is I'm really buckling down on this new project, and it's a 5 a.m. kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm really focused right now, and I'm excited.
Well, appreciate the fact that when you are in town, you drive your kids to school, because that's, as you know, that's some fun time, and picking them up can even be more fun. But anyway, listeners, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode with John Eades, CEO of his company, which we didn't mention, LearnLoft. Look it up, follow him. Not that he needs any more followers, but he needs the ones that are going to follow and take a listen as to what's John Eades really trying to tell me. And you're a very intentional human being. I love that about you. And I believe anyone listening could benefit from bringing you into their organization, having them coach them. Your style is a little different than mine, but ultimately we're both just trying to help people be better human beings. And we call it leadership coaching, but they don't really know we're really just trying to help them be better human beings. And I can tell by the smile on your face, you get where I'm coming from. And
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. It means a lot, and keep it
my,
up.
my pleasure. Thanks for listening, everyone. We will be back with some other episodes. I hope you will follow. And if you don't, that's okay too, because we all have opinions. So go out and be curious, be kind, and God bless.